you've made the transition recently from thinker and commentator on politics to actual practitioner, being elected an MEP, a member of the European Parliament for the Brexit Party. What has amazed me, looking from afar at the whole Brexit process, is the willingness of both members of Parliament, of the British Parliament, and also within the bureaucracy to just blithely seek to frustrate the democratically expressed will of the British people, and without even any sense of shame, without even a hint of shame that they're doing something fundamentally wrong here. Am I naive to think that they should be ashamed, or even worse, they should actually implement the democratic will of the people?
Well, obviously, I would agree with you. But going back to our earlier conversation, in a society where you can delegitimize people so easily, that's one of the things that's happened. So it is, with no embarrassment at all, it is discussed that people who voted to leave the European Union didn't know what they were voting for, because they were lied to or manipulated, or they were too stupid to understand, and consequently, these people are trying to thwart the will of the people, see themselves, and I think that's how they see themselves, as saving the people from themselves, and saying, oh no, what you don't understand, you lot over there, is that you have been manipulated by these very clever, rich people. They'll often pose it like that, the elites, and there's a few of the elite that supported Brexit. Actually, most of them were on the Remain side, but so the kind of it shows you how thin democracy is. That's the thing for me. That's when you also realise. So it's the 200th anniversary of the Peterloo massacre, the famous massacre in Manchester in northwest England, and where that was one of the first things that happened, where people were demanding representation in Parliament. Not even one person, one vote, but it created the landowners and the cavalry, paid to that. But it was a historically important moment because it facilitated a discussion in society that then said, actually, we should have chartism, and we ended up with universal franchise. Anyway, so there's a film called Peterloo, and everybody goes to see it, and everybody celebrates it, and they say this is what democracy is all about, and there's been conferences, and then there are all people who say, oh yes, but in the Brexit vote recently, they didn't know what they were doing. And it's like this extraordinary, and whereas I see Peterloo as a perfect example of why historically we should recognise that the vote was fought for hard. People lost their lives in the fight for it. It was a major struggle amongst ordinary people around the world, but in the UK. And to throw it away, to treat it so glibly, is really frightening to me. And you suddenly realise that everything needs to be fought for over and over again. The arguments need to be remade. So a bit, as we were saying about free speech, you realise you can't just say it's democracy anymore. You have to actually be able to inhabit that, give it some content, because the phrase doesn't mean anything anymore. And at the moment, the people who are trying to stop Brexit being implemented are saying that they are the Democrats. And now there's an argument about who represents democracy, really. So it's fascinating.
Through the Battle of Ideas, you've been dedicated to promoting the culture of democratic debate. You've now entered the European Parliament to defend the principles of democracy at the national level through trying to get Brexit implemented. However, one of the great things about the Battle of Ideas was that I was very struck by the level of corporate support that you had, and that it seemed to me that the corporates who were backing you had a real commitment towards the ethos and vision of the event. That's changed since you've entered.
Yeah, there's a reluctance to be associated with the Brexit Party, because of my association with the Brexit Party. And again, it's so frustrating because in general, I think that corporate support for events like this is essential. I think it's essential for the corporates, because if anyone's in an echo chamber in a bubble, these days it's corporates. And those people who supported the festival over the years have actually appreciated that they've been exposed to a wider range of ideas than they would normally be, and they bring their graduate schemes and those kind of things. But such is the toxic nature of the Brexit debate that is a challenge. And, you know, it's a worry, and it's a pain in the neck, and it's an act of cowardice, and what can I say? But I think that, but you know, I knew that these things were a risk. I think that there are just times in history when you think, oh, I think this might be more important than whether the Academy of Ideas can survive or whether I can carry on running a festival. Not because I want either of them to go under, but I thought, you know, in the end, there was something much more important at stake. And in some ways, partly I felt that I couldn't, because I'm quite well known, I realised that if I stood, it would shake up the way the Brexit Party was seen, and it would have an influence. I mean, I didn't realise quite how savage the world would turn against me, but it also, on the more positive side, meant that people were saying, oh my God, if she's standing for that, you know, that kind of changes it. So that's why it's been important. But you know, to have kind of just gone back to have kind of been talking about it at the Battle of Ideas in the midst of this kind of tumult in British politics, and to have not kind of, you know, put myself forward when I was asked. I mean, if I hadn't been asked, I wouldn't have offered. Or, you know, I just thought, you know, ultimately, this is the test of anyone politically, isn't it? You know, there's no point just talking about it. In the end, I want to change the world for the better, or rather, I certainly don't want it to be changed for the worst. And I could see that everything I believed in, on freedom, on democracy, on giving people a voice, was just going to be destroyed if they got away with selling out Brexit. And I just felt that that was too big to let that happen without kind of putting your head above the parapet was just too much, really. So I'm hoping that we'll find new ways of organising into the future, if not the old ways. But we're having the Battle of Ideas this year, so if anyone is in London, 2nd to 3rd of November, we'll definitely get through to the end of this year. After that, well, you know, the future's a risk and an exciting adventure, if not a bit of a roller coaster and a bit scary.
Well, as I said, the Battle of Ideas was the best conference I've ever been to. More power to you. Here's to a prosperous and long future of the battle, and thanks very much, Claire.
Thank you very much.